And I'd like to invite Jonas and Katrina to join me on stage. He's gone. He's going to Kid Power. Today is Witness Sunday. And would you rather the chair? Today is Witness Sunday, and Jonas and Katrina recently went on a trip to Africa, and we've invited them to share a little bit as part of our Witness Sunday about their trip. And so I just want to ask, first of all, give us the when, where, how about the trip.
Go for it.
You've got a new found of talking. Let's go.
You know, it's not, this doesn't kind of relate, but my really good friend's in Brazil right now doing mission work, and she messaged me just the other day, and she said that her roommate that she's doing mission work with reminds her so much of me, frustratingly so. Well, she said, well, she reminds me of the old you, the you before you realized you had a voice.
Oh.
And she was like, I don't know if it was cancer or Jonas that brought it out in you.
The joke at the house is she never had cancer before me, so you're probably right.
But it's funny is she says I found my voice, but then I get up here and then I forget I have it.
Yeah.
Because I just want to run and hide. But we got the privilege of going to Uganda, and really it wasn't a mission to help them, it was a mission to help us. And just to give a chance to see that what matters and what doesn't matter, the things that we find important really aren't as important as they should be. It was hard not to go in there. I told myself not to judge them for their way of life, just to be open and honest and listen to them. But you still go and you look around and you see what they don't have instead of looking at what they do have. And you see poverty, but really they don't see it. We see it. We're taught like what's important and what's not important, and that's not what's important to them. Mm-hmm. They just, and most of the thing they want is just somebody to be there to see them. Like that's the most important thing to them.
One of the books we read before we went, it was How to Help and Not Hurt?
Yeah, Helping Without Hurting.
And it asked us, what do you see poverty as? And one of our answers was, you don't have food, you don't have, power or somewhere to live. And the answer in the book was, you're not seen. You don't have a voice. You don't feel loved. And like John and Marge, they had us over for dinner, and Marge asked me, like, what do you want to get out of this? And like Marge, I said, I want to be kicked in the teeth. That's what I want. I want God to kick me in the teeth and show me where I'm wrong. And that was just the beginning of it. But our mission, we went over to Uganda. We worked in a clinic for 2 days. It's a medical clinic. I got to finger prick people and test for malaria, because if malaria is not caught in babies really young, it leaves them disabled. First day we were there, 7 kids under the age of probably 9 tested positive for malaria. And then Katrina, she has a voice. She was actively praying over people, in which, if you know my wife, that's not her. She's not an out front kind of person. She's like her mama. She likes to be in the back. She likes to serve. She likes to do stuff. And to see her just actively praising and praying over people was one of the coolest things I've ever seen.
So that was your 2 days in the clinic. What'd you do the other days?
2 days in the clinic, and then we went out into the community. We did some outreach in the community.
This was part of the clinic days.
Yeah.
He was in the lab, but I got to play with babies. So that was more my comfort zone, as you can see.
As if you can't tell by the smile on her face. But after that, we went out into the community. We did some outreach. We loved on some people. We went into some of the villages. We helped build a kitchen for a family one day, in which, it's nothing you're going to see on H&G TV or anything, but it was something probably the size of this stage right here, and they loved it. It was fantastic. That's all the team that we had. There was 12 of us, 14.
Yeah, we had 2 young ones. Finley was 9 and Penelope's 12, so that was cool too, is get to watch them serve too. like even the first clinic day, there was a kid that his shoes broke while they were playing, and Finley gave him his shoes. Didn't have shoes the rest of the day, but he went to his mom and he's like, Mom, I really think I need to give this kid my shoes. So he took them off and gave them to him the very first day, and he only took 2 pairs of shoes with him the whole entire time anyways. So, and the shoes did not fit this kid. The Crocs were like, I don't know, 2 inches too small, but yet that kid wore them proudly the rest of the time we saw him too.
Absolutely. That was probably one of the coolest things that I saw the whole trip, was somebody like realizing a need, especially at 9 years old, and then looking at his mom and be like, I think I've got to do this. And then his mom having enough humility to be like, I'm not going to tell you not to. If you feel God's telling you to do this, do it. And like, it was awesome. And then the second clinic day, which this was one of the most moving things we did over there. We actually, first foot washing I've ever been a part of. And we had the privilege of watching the kids' feet. I know that they don't know the significance of it, but yeah. Go ahead, you're up.
Honestly, I was kind of surprised by how many kids, though, like, wanted to line up for a foot washing. I don't think I'd want somebody washing my feet, but they were so excited about it. And I couldn't even tell you, like, we had to change the water out because you can see in some of the side, like, how gross it got. Because, I mean, they wear sandals and stuff, and it's just red dirt everywhere. So it immediately, the first kid was, but they didn't care. They were so excited to let somebody wash their feet that they just kept lining up. Oh, this is the day we got to build the kitchen. So this family, the mom is actually in jail for stealing food. The husband was, within the last 3 years, he was in a construction accident and he's paralyzed. So, and then they have 2 boys. I can't remember their age. I think around 10 and 12-ish.
Yeah.
But
And they're HIV positive.
yeah, they're all HIV positive. And they have to walk 7 miles to get their medicine. The boys do, because the dad can't do it and the mom's in jail. And one of the boys they live in, like, it's just a 1-room little house, like no electricity, no running water, no anything.
Again, it's about the size of this state.
Yeah. And the older boy started trying to build a kitchen for him. But of course he didn't know how to do it, so it collapsed. So part of our mission was somebody had donated some money and we went and started helping them build the kitchen. There's a picture in a minute that, like, where we got to pray over the whole foundation right here on the right. Like, we all circled it and prayed over it, which was really an awesome experience. Like, you know, like starting a project from the beginning, the foundation it was built on, and just getting to be a part of that. That's the dad in the middle. We got to go in and visit with him. Of course, he was bedridden and he couldn't get out, so we each took turns and went and saw. And then this on the left is their oldest daughter. She is 15. Her name is Zetunia, and she was already married off and had a baby, and she was back home, though, because the husband was abusive, so she's already come back.
So one cool thing about the picture in the middle, the dad, like Katrina said, he was in a construction accident like 3 years ago. He's paralyzed from the waist down. Like, one of the questions in a minute is how we saw God move. Like, I don't even think I've told John and Marge this, but this family, like, they have no electricity. The way that they have a cell phone but no electricity. The way they charge their phone is there's a small solar panel up on top of the house with the wire running down, and there's a battery inside. It's almost like a small, like, lawnmower battery. Well, before we left, John and Marge had us over for dinner again, and they said, hey, we're doing our tithing and stuff for like the next couple months. Like, we're going to, like, pour into you all. Well, the money that you all give us, like, their solar panel broke a few weeks beforehand because of a storm that come through. So the money that you all sowed into us, we're able to sow into them. And it was enough to cover the new solar panel and a battery for them. So I just thought, how cool was that with, like, how John is with his accident, that we're able to pour into somebody that's got the exact same thing. Like, that's how we saw God. Like, God was everywhere in this. And even when we first come back, we were like, I don't know if we did enough. I don't know if we could do enough. But processing it a few weeks afterwards, like, that's one of the biggest things that has touched me.
So I don't know if there's a bunch of slides left or not, but why don't you all go through the rest of the slides, and then we'll wrap up with the question of what lasting impact will this have on your life? You know, what's different now?
So for me, how I process stuff in my time with God is cleaning. And I haven't been able to do that because we've been so busy since we got back. So honestly, I don't think I processed until yesterday. I spent the day pressure washing, and that's the time that I hear God the most is when I'm busy. Because I cannot just sit still. I've tried that whole praying and being with God. I can't do it. I have to be busy or my brain just goes, whew, squirrels. So yesterday was just more like, I don't think I'd realized that it had the impact, and I don't think I'd let it have the impact on me yet. I spent the day listening to God tell me about basically kind of what I said to start with is how we see poverty versus how they see poverty, and they just want to be present. And I was thinking a lot about your sermon series about, you know, how bread is not, sorry, I'm getting nervous. Bread alone is not enough. But yet we still seek that constantly. Like that is what we spend our lives going after. And if we just stop, God will provide that bread. And I thought about how when the Israelites were leaving Egypt and God was providing manna every single day, and yet they still didn't trust him. Like we always want that visual, like to remember that God is there and God is present. And they had it and they still didn't fully trust in him. And just to more stop seeking the things that aren't important and just let him know that he's going to provide those if we're doing what he wants us to.
All right, so I'm going to try to keep this short, but we all know I like to talk. My lasting impression, this little girl right here. On Saturday, we were there, we did this thing called Soul Touch. It was like a one-day vacation Bible school. There was only supposed to be 100 kids there, and there ended up being 220 kids there. And most of them was Muslim. As soon as we walked in the gates, this little girl right here, her name is Katie. She's probably 4 or 5 years old-ish. She just walked up to me and went, mm-hmm. So me being me, like, I'm like, all right, this is what we're doing. I picked her up and like, she was with me the rest of the time. Like the slide before this one, like I'm holding her. Like that's how we were. And then go ahead and go back. And then we fed them, which their breakfast was Ugandan porridge and like a roll, which Ugandan porridge is almost like a milk gravy and a roll. That's what they had for breakfast, and they were excited and happy as a lark. And then we started doing the vacation Bible school stuff. And she started out in my lap. And then 10 minutes later, she was asleep. Like 2 hours before that, she had no idea who I was. So my lasting impression is that right there, like, what kind of faith she has in me, what kind of comfort she has in me, and what kind of security she has of a stranger just to curl up and go to sleep. Because we all know, like, small kids, like, they're timid and they're scared and they won't go to just anybody. But for her to be able to just, I'm safe with him. Like, that's what I brought from this, because that's the kind of faith we need to have in our God. That's what we need to spread, because if we look at our Bible, I mean, it's not just a book of 66 books that are collections of writings. Like, that is the greatest love story ever written to us, and that's what we've got to show everybody. That's what we've got to go out into the world, because that's what we're told to do. We're told to go and make disciples, and that's what we did. And I forgot to tell you this, but the guy that we're sewing into for the solar panel, he accepted Christ a week after we left. He was a Muslim when we were there, and he accepted Jesus. Like, that's what I got from this, and that's what we're going to do going forward.
Well, I'm sure that there's a lot more stories you could tell and a lot more people want to hear, and so they will stay in the gathering place for up to 3 hours after church to tell stories.
As long as you feed me.
That's right. Thank you, guys.
Because maybe I'm not so about the bread alone.
Yeah, that's true. True. It's good up until lunchtime, and then it's not. But it's still true. It's bread and meat and, mashed potatoes. Thank you, guys. I want to encourage everybody here. We are, I love the size of our church. I actually think that the most ministry happens in smaller churches where you can actually connect and be family with each other. But one thing is about the size of our church is we don't have the ability to lead foreign mission trips 3, 4, 5 times a year. You know, we're hoping to actually put together a trip in the next year to year and a half. But there are tons of opportunities through groups like Beyond Uganda, Labor of Love, Starfish. There's lots of opportunities. And if you decide, hey, I want to go on a trip, or, you know, by yourself, or 4 or 5 people from here from church, and you go on one, and you want to come back and share with the church just like they did, we encourage you to do that. We want people to go and explore how God is using them. And it might be in Gilbertsville, or it might be in Uganda, you know. And if you're involved in a work that God is moving somewhere in some way, and you want to share with the church, just let me know. We want you to be able to share that witness. I also want to remind you, next week, food drive for PCM, a way that we can see God move right here in our community. They really need the help. The tariffs have hit them hard. The items are on the flyer, and make sure you don't bring green beans, because I don't want green beans. Only bring the items on the flyer. That's really important. But bring those next week. You can put them on the stage. You can put them in the lobby, and then we'll haul them over there on Monday. If anybody wants to help us on Monday a week, Jared and I would appreciate the help. We'll load up all the food and take it to PCM. Today we're in John chapter 2, and one of the things we want to get to before we get to the text is the fact that the Jews at the time of Jesus were obsessed with being clean. And I don't mean clean like we think of clean. Like, for me, if I get up in the morning and take a shower, and then I go out later in the day, I mow the grass, what do I want to do? I want to take another shower, right? There have been times I have taken 3 showers in one day because I got dirty 3 times in one day, because we as Americans, we like to be clean. How many times have you washed your hands? Maybe you're preparing food or something, you wash your hands, and then you're doing something, and you're not sure, you're like, did I touch the trash can? And you go wash your hands again before you, right? We just really like actual sanitary cleanliness. But the Jews were obsessed with ritual cleanliness. It wasn't actually so much about whether there were germs in their body. They didn't even know about germs. It was about whether or not they had gone through the correct cleansing rituals before God. The Bible teaches people that they needed to use water to wash away their uncleanliness before approaching the Lord. It all begins in God's instructions to Moses about building the tabernacle. So if you remember in the Old Testament, God said, you're going to build me a big tent where you'll come worship me. And he had all kinds of detailed instructions, about 17 or 18 chapters of detailed instructions. And in Exodus 30:17, it gives some instructions about cleanliness. Make a bronze basin with its bronze stand for washing. Place it between the tent of meeting and the altar, and put water in it. Aaron and his sons are to wash their hands and feet with the water from it whenever they enter the tent of meeting. They shall wash with water so they will not die. Also, when they approach the altar to minister by presenting a food offering to the Lord, they shall wash their hands and feet so they will not die. This is the initial command regarding cleanliness. And from this, the people realize and are instructed that if they touch a corpse, blood, or a bodily discharge, they need to wash, which is good advice anyway, right? But they need to wash so that they can be ritually clean before the Lord. Numbers 19:17 says this, for the unclean person, put some ashes from the burned purification offering into a jar and pour fresh water over them. So there's other cleanliness rituals. It wasn't always just about washing with water. Sometimes it involved this ash water. Sometimes it involved presenting yourself before the priest so they could declare you clean. But the state of cleanliness, of washing to become seen as clean before the Lord, was super, super, super important to the Jews. And over time, what made you clean, or rather what could make you unclean, kept expanding. And all these things could make you unclean that you had to worry about. The rabbis eventually decided that you couldn't really become clean unless you used fresh water. And the term they used was living water. Now, this meant water that was moving from a spring or a stream. We know this. If you want to get, clean, and you can't take a bath, but say you're camping or something, and you want to jump in a pond or a lake to get clean. Are you jumping in the scummy, stagnant, smelly pond with bubbling with methane and frogs jumping in and out? You're probably not. You're going to look for that clean, flowing water that's not stagnant. And so they recognize this, that that's the type of water that should be used for purification. The problem is, everybody doesn't live next to a spring or a stream. So what do you do if you need to take water from a source of clean water and bring it back to the tabernacle, bring it back to the temple, bring it back to your village so that you can be clean? Well, what are you going to put it in? A jar, right? Well, there's a problem. Most jars are made out of ceramics. At this time, ceramic was generally not glazed. Guess what happens if you use unglazed ceramic? Bacteria can get in it and live down in the pores of the ceramic. And so, if you have ceramic ware in your house today that's not glazed and you put meat in it, and then you dump the meat out, even if you wash it, that bacteria can live down in that ceramic. Next time you use it, you're going to get real sick. That's why we used glazed pottery. So they knew from experience, and it says so in the Old Testament, that unglazed pottery could get you sick. So what could they use to ensure that it could never become contaminated? Stone jars. The rabbis decided that stone jars, which would be, you take a block of stone and you cut a core out of the middle and remove it and shape it into a jar from one piece of stone. That a stone jar would be impervious to holding bacteria, and a stone jar would keep the water fresh. They didn't even know what bacteria was, but they knew that a stone jar would keep the water fresh. There's even a rabbinical document from around the time of Jesus that spells this out. It's from the Mishnah Kalim 5:11. It says, all stone vessels are totally unsusceptible to impurity, so a stone oven can never become impure. So now we got a solution. If you want to be ritually clean, you're going to go to the spring, you're going to go to the stream where the fresh living water is, you're going to put it in a stone jar, which is going to make it 5 times as heavy because stone jars are really heavy, and you're going to carry that stone jar back to where you need it, and now you have a source of clean water until you run out of water. There's a problem though. First of all, stone jars are very heavy. Second of all, they are very expensive. You can imagine how labor intensive it must have been. Ceramics are not that hard to make. You just take clay, you shape it. It doesn't have to be beautiful. It can be, but you can shape it on your own into something you can use. Stone, whoo, buddy. Quarrying it out, coring it. I still cannot figure out how. I can figure out how you can carve around a circle down. I don't know how they get under the bottom to get that core out and make it smooth inside there. But somehow they know how to do that. And they knew how to core it out. And it was really labor intensive, really expensive thing to do. And it can only be done in places where there are adequate supplies of stone to be quarried. So, here's Jesus in John chapter 2. And he's standing in a room where there are 6 of these 20 to 30 gallon stone jars. Now imagine you probably in your kitchen have about a 20-gallon trash can. So a stone jar that would hold that volume of water, 20 to 30 gallons, probably about this tall, this big around. He's looking at about 6 of them, and they're filled with water. And he's trying to figure out how on earth he's going to turn that water into wine. John 2, 1 through 6. On the 3rd day, a wedding took place in Cana in Galilee. Jesus' mother was there, and Jesus and his disciples had also been invited to the wedding. When the wine was gone, Jesus' mother said to him, "They have no more wine." "Woman, why do you involve me?" Jesus replied, "My hour has not yet come." His mother said to the servants, "Do whatever he tells you." You know, for a long time, critics of the Bible looked at this passage and they said, John made this up. He made this up. And the reason they gave is they said, this is Cana in Galilee. It's a long way from Jerusalem. There is no way on earth that they had stone purification jars there. They're too labor intensive. They're too expensive. The people outside of around Jerusalem, there's a lot of pressure to be ritually clean. You live out in the sticks, you probably don't care that much. You really probably aren't going to that much trouble. And they said, John obviously made this story up. Until they started to find stone jars in Galilee. In fact, in 2017, a team of archaeologists uncovered a 2,000-year-old chalk stone quarry and manufacturing center at Renee, a town in central Galilee. You're actually looking at a picture of the layer that's uncovered filled with cores. Those are the cores that were removed. So they found this manufacturing center. So not only were there stone jars in the region, they were actually being manufactured in the region. Since then, they have found at least 3 more sites and dozens of sites where there are fragments of broken jars. So the Gospel of John was being criticized that, it's probably made up because they wouldn't have had stone jars there. They wouldn't have done that. When in fact, not only did they have them, they were making them in the area. The Gospel of John is factual. There were stone purification jars present in Cana at this time. But it gets even better. In 1998, at the top of a hill called Kirbet Quanah, they found a Jewish settlement town. It's a settlement from the 1st century, which matches all the details given about Cana in the Bible and in the works of Josephus, a historian who also recorded some details about Cana. In fact, Josephus at one point was also a general, and he actually settled at Cana with his troops for a while. So he gives these details. It matches all the details. It matches what the Bible says. And they start looking through this settlement, and they notice that the settlement is actually built on top of the 1st century settlement. What they found above it is a little bit later. So they go down to the 1st century settlement on the layer below, and they found a series of tunnels. And they go inside these tunnels, and they start seeing Christian iconography. Now, you see Christian iconography in places that early Christian pilgrims went to. Apparently, the early Christian pilgrims were really big-time graffiti artists. They're really into vandalism, because everywhere you go in the ancient world where the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th century Christians went, they started drawing on all the walls. So they go, okay, so this is a place that early Christians came to because they believed something important happened here. And they come into one of the rooms, and they find this altar with this woman here in the measuring rod. It's actually the lid from a sarcophagus, a bone box, that was flipped up on its side to create an altar. And above this altar, there was a shelf, and on that shelf, there were 2 stone purification jars and a room where 4 more had previously sat that had been taken by thieves and vandals. Scholars believe that the earliest Christians believed this was the exact site of the miracle. And that possibly the 2 jars on the shelf are either 2 of the original 6 jars, or they were placed there by early Christians to mark the spot where this miracle took place. And so now we have a location that scholars believe most likely is the location the miracle took place. It matches the description in the Bible. We know that the stone purification jars were there. John was reporting true facts when he told this story. But let's go back to Jesus in the room. Here's Jesus in the room, and he is in trouble. He's in trouble with his mother, because his mother has told him, not asked him, to fix a problem, a serious problem. There is no more wine. Have you ever been there? I mean, not asked to turn water into wine. Have you ever been there with a bossy mom? You ever been there where your mom wants you to do something you're thinking, this is not possible, mother? I don't know if you guys have been there the way I've been there. You see, when I was about 14 years old, we had a lily pond in our backyard. We didn't use it as a lily pond. I haven't used a lily pond in a long, long time, 50 years. And my mom decided that lily pond was going to be a sandbox. Well, I was 14 and my brother was 9, and I thought, we missed the sandbox window here, but okay. My mom said, we're going to turn this lily pond into a sandbox. But we're not going to go buy bags of sand. That would be frugal, or that'd be ridiculous. That'd be expensive. This is Michigan. Michigan has a layer of sand underneath all the dirt somewhere. The whole thing was a sand dune at one point in time. She said, we're going to dig for it. So my mom gave me a shovel, pointed at a spot in the ground, and said, dig until you hit sand. I don't know how tall I was at 14. I was probably about 5'6", 5'7". But I clearly remember being in a hole so deep that I had to hold the bucket above my head to hand it to my mother with a shovel. And I'm in this, I don't know how we dug this hole like this, but I remember being in this hole with the shovel, and we had to cut the shovel handle so that I could actually turn it, because the hole was so, and put the sand in the bucket before my mom finally said, the quality of the sand is no good. We're just going to go buy some at the store. You have a mom who ever asked you to do something impossible? I've been there. I have been there. So here's what's going on. Jesus is the Son of God, right? He was born miraculously with an announcement of angels, and Mary knows this. And she's going to boss him around? But Mary says, Jesus, There's no more wine. And Jesus says, hey, why are you getting me involved? It's not time for me to start doing that kind of stuff yet. And Mary goes, sure, waiters, just do what he says. And she leaves. I think there's one more step in there, though. I think right before she left, when Jesus says, why are you involving me? And she says, do what he says. I think before she left, she turns and looks at him and she gives him that mom look. There it is. It's the look I got when I said, we're going to dig for Satan. You're going to dig. Now, I'm just going to tell you, I think it's just in the mom DNA, right? Like you don't have to learn that look. Like when the baby comes out, the look comes on, right? Like it's just, it happens, right? Every mom's got it, right? I mean, you need it. I'm not knocking moms. I mean, you need it. Who else is going to make sure everybody is clothed and fed and safe? It's not going to be dad, right? I mean, moms need the look, right? They need the look. There's a comedian named Anita Renfro, and what we all kind of know about being a mom, she sums up in a real funny way. So before we go on, we're going to take about a 3-minute break here, and we're going to watch Momisms set to the William Tell Orchestra by Anita Renfro and kind of get an idea of the look that Mary was giving Jesus. Let's watch the video real quick.
All the moms! Get up now, get up out of bed. Wash your face, brush your teeth, comb your sleepy head. Here's your clothes and your shoes. Hear the words I said. Get up now, get up, make your bed. Are you hot? Are you cold? Are you wearing that? Where's your books and your lunch and your homework? Get grab your coat and your gloves and your scarf and hat. Don't forget, you gotta feed the cat. Eat your breakfast. The experts tell us it's the most important meal of all. Take your vitamins so you will grow up one day to be big and tall. Just remember the orthodontist will be seeing you at 3 today. Don't forget your piano lesson is this afternoon, so you must play. Don't shovel too slowly, but hurry. The bus is here. Be careful. Come back here. Did you wash behind your ears? Play outside. Just play fair. Be polite. Make a friend. Don't forget to share. Wait your turn. Work it out. Never take a dare. Get along. Don't let me come down. Then clean your own folks. Close some stuff away. Make your bed. Do it now. We don't have all day. Were you born in a barn? Would you like some hay? Can you even hear a word I say? Answer the phone. Get off the phone. Don't sit so close. Turn it down. No texting at the table. No more computer time tonight. Your iPod's my iPod if you don't listen up. We're going in with whom and what time do you think you're coming home? Saying thank you, please, excuse me, makes you welcome everywhere you roam. You appreciate my wisdom someday when you're older and you're grown. Can't wait till you have a couple little children of your own. You'll thank me for the counsel I gave you so willingly, but right now I thank you not to roll your eyes at me. Close your mouth when you chew. We'd appreciate. Take a bite, maybe 2 of the stuff you hate. Use your fork, do not burp, or I'll set you straight. Eat the food I put up on your plate. Get an A, get a door, get smart with me. Get a grip, get a hair. I'll count you 3. Get a job, get a life, get a PhD, get a dose of I don't care who started it. You're grounded until you're 36. Get your story straight and tell the truth for once, for heaven's sakes. And if all your friends jumped off a cliff, would you jump too? If I've said it once, I've said at least 1,000 times before that you're too old to act this way. It must be your father's DNA. Look at me when I am talking, stand up straighter when you walk a place. For everything and everything must be in place. Stop crying or I'll give you something real to cry about. Oh. Brush your teeth, wash your face, get your PJs on, get in bed, get a hug, say a prayer with Mom. Don't forget, I love you. And tomorrow we will do this all again because a mom's work never ends. You don't need the reason why. Because. I said so, I said so, I said so, I said so. The mom, the mom, the mom, the mom, the mom. Ta-da!
Does that about sum it up? Yeah. My point before I show this video is I'm not really blaming Mary here. Moms have a big job, right? And her whole life, she's been Jesus' mom. And Jesus was born 100% human. Mary had to change his diapers. Mary had to wash him. And so Mary is going, there's a problem here. You can fix it. Gives him the mom look. The question is, why does Mary feel like it's her problem? She's a guest at a wedding, and why does she know there's a problem? And why does she feel like she ought to be the one to fix it? Because if I go to a wedding with my kids and they run out of shrimp cocktail, I don't say, Ashton, get in the car and go to Kroger and buy some more and get it back here quick before they're embarrassed that they ran out. What was the connection between Mary and the family that was throwing the wedding? That's the question that scholars are asking. What was it that kicked the mom gene into gear for Mary? Well, the culture of first century Judaism was such that it was an honor and hospitality culture. Your honor was tied to how hospitable you were. If you failed to feed guests, it brought shame to you and your family. Your whole family's name was on the line. And the system of marriage was such that when somebody became engaged, there was a long betrothal period. Sometimes more than a year. And during that betrothal period, the fiance, the husband, the groom, the husband-to-be, would be building a house for his wife, preparing everything to demonstrate to the community that he was now stepping through the last vestige of manhood, and he was going to be able to provide for his new wife and family. And finally, when the house was done, when everything was ready, then they could have the wedding. And in the wedding, the whole community came together because the communities worked together to build the house. They worked together to do these things. And so now, in a grand gesture of thanks, they're going to throw this big wedding banquet to thank the community for their support, but also to demonstrate that the groom and his family, because you didn't do anything independently, were able to care for the new bride and the children that would be coming. So, if you ran out of food or wine at the wedding banquet, what did that say about your ability to care for and provide for your family? This was a major, major embarrassment. And so scholars have suggested that Mary was related to the groom's family. It seems likely, considering that this is a very low populated area of small towns where generally, so that you avoid marrying your sibling or cousin, you get a bride from a town over. Cana and Nazareth are just between 7 and 12 miles apart, just far enough that there's probably a lot of intermarriage going on. And so likely, Mary is related to the groom's family in this situation. And so now she is helping to serve as a family member, and she is helping the name of her family, the honor of her family, and suddenly we find out there's not enough wine. This is going to be a major embarrassment. It's going to look terrible on the groom. It's going to look terrible on her entire family. And here is Jesus, who is vested. He has a vested interest in this. This is his cousin, or maybe it could even be one of his brothers who's getting married. Whoever it is, Mary she is serious. This is not a, hey, we could help. This is a, we're going to fix this, Jesus. Now, whether or not she anticipated that he was going to perform a miracle, or she just thought he was going to get his 12 buddies he runs around with, that we call the disciples, and they were going to run and scour the neighborhoods to find more wine, she wanted him to do something. And so he ends up in this room with 12 vessels of stone filled with water for the purpose of ritual purification. John 2, 6 through 11. Nearby stood 6 stone water jars, the kind used by the Jews for ceremonial washing, each of them holding 20 to 30 gallons. Jesus said to the servants, fill the jars with water. So they filled them to the brim. Then he told them, now draw some out and take it to the master of the banquet. They did so, and the master of the banquet tasted the water that had been turned into wine. He did not realize where it had come from, though the servants who had drawn the water knew. Then he called to the bridegroom aside, and he said, everyone brings out the choice wine first, then the cheaper wine after the guests have had too much to drink. But you have saved the best for now. What Jesus did here in Cana of Galilee was the first of the signs through which he revealed his glory, and his disciples believed in him. So as we wrap this up, let's talk about abundance. This whole series is about the abundance of God. And here's a passage where the bridegroom is about to be humiliated, but God steps in through Jesus and provides more and better wine than they had even had in the first place. That's just the way God is. He is a God of more and better. He is a God of abundance. But on the next level, Jesus himself is the bridegroom. We are the bride. And this miracle is designed to show us that he is more than capable of providing for us everything that we need. And what do we need? Well, the stone jars, what were they used for in the first place? Ritual purification, cleansing by water. Under the old covenant, the people could only approach God if they were ceremonially clean, if the dirt and germs were washed away from their bodies by water. But Jesus replaces that water with wine, which he will later associate with his own blood through the act of communion. Jesus is effectively showing us that the washing of our bodies with water under the old covenant is gone and now replaced with something more and better in the washing of our hearts with the wine of his blood. We are now fully cleansed and our sins are forever forgiven. This is the abundance of God. And when the disciples saw this, they believed. So if you ever find yourself about 12 miles northwest of the Dead Sea, on a hill, of the Sea of Galilee, on the top of a hill covered by an ancient town, go down into the tunnels to the real place where these real events happened and see some real stone jars on a shelf that could possibly be the exact jars that held the wine of the new covenant. Imagine a real person who had a real mom giving a real mom look because her family was about to be embarrassed, and know that Jesus really did a real miracle, providing more and better than anyone could have ever imagined. And what happened next? The party went on. In fact, the party got better. People enjoyed good food, good company, and good times, because when the abundance of God shows up, what do you really have to worry about? So this week, we have a specific way in which we would like you to apply this lesson, and that way is Sabbath. God designed the Sabbath as an act of trusting in his abundance. Stop working, stop striving, rest, give up a day of work, knowing that God will still provide for you. Enjoy family and friends and trust in him. So what we're asking you to do is this week, set aside some time. You may need to talk to your spouse, talk to your kids, but pick some time. Maybe it's just a 2-hour block. Maybe it's a whole day. But say on Thursday night from 6 to bedtime, no one works. No homework, no housework, no anything. You know what you're going to have to do? You're going to have to prepare. You have to get the homework done early. You're going to have to get the cooking done early, so that at that time you can actually stop. Because we don't often stop, and when we do, we don't often do it together. Oh, I got to take a break, but you keep doing. As a family, say, this week we're going to take this time and we're going to take Sabbath together. No one works for a couple hours. Be like the people at the wedding party. Enjoy good times with good friends. Trust that God has provided more and better for you than you could ever imagine. Let's continue in song as we finish our service.